Hello, everyone. I am Norman Buchwald, and I am one of the librarians here at Chabot College. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to find various different resources available at the library for your current research assignment. So, your instructor has hopefully provided you this link, https://libraryguides.chabotcollege.edu/ENGL1, numeral 1, Treadwell, the last name of your instructor, starting with a T, followed by an underscore, then SP 2023, and that will take you directly to this guide. If for whatever reason you don't have that link in front of you, start at the college homepage, and then under academics and student support, select library. Then from here, from the general library navigation on the tabs on the top, click where it says Lib Orientations, aka Library Orientations. And then scroll down until you get to English 1, the last name of your instructor, followed by either a topic or the title of the work afterwards, which in this case is how the word is passed. You click on that, and that will take you directly to this guide. I'm going to be giving you two especially new recordings on how to use this particular guide and how to use our databases for your research. I'm also going to be providing one or two more additional recordings, which were pre-recorded for another class, but pretty much are about the same things, such as why I would advise, especially for an assignment like this, not to use Google as a first choice. And at least a quick recording, though it's going to be probably also part of the databases recording, how to log into databases off campus. I might throw in one or two more, but this is what's available on your guide today. For today's guide, I'm probably going to include an additional tab after the fact. It will say tutorials, which will include today's library orientation, some general tutorials, and some general portions that I've given to a previous class. So this page, each guide, library research guide, is then divided into a number of pages. And the important thing to remember is once you're in an individual guide, in most cases, you will not be selecting any of the tabs on top. You will, below the title, then select these other row of tabs, which are in, if you're not colorblind, available in blue. And it is these tabs below the title that you will definitely want to be focused upon to do, in most cases, to do your research for this class. Now, the home page is mainly an introduction page, but it is also a page of where you want to get help. So if you notice right below what is called our quick search guide, that is if you want to go in and do some general quick searching, and if you don't mind an individual database or reference book, I'm probably going to be swaying you against that, but that is where you can go, is a box for you to chat with the library, which is available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That means next week when it's spring break and the library is closed and the librarians at Chabot are not working, there are librarians from all around the world that are available to help you and can help you at least 90% of the time. One example where they cannot help you is to say, for whatever reason, your password doesn't work. That actually needs to go back to one of us. And if it's a time that we're closed, you have to allow a day or two if that happens. And good news is that there is a link on the right, which you can click on, that says how to get into databases off campus. And once you log into your Canvas page, Give me a second here. Good, it took me directly to here. Well, the top portion tells you how to log into our databases regularly, which, by the way, is your WID number and your 6-digit class web PIN. If for whatever reason that doesn't work, there are special instructions on how to get into most of our databases. That would include Academic Search Complete, an Ethnic Diversity Source, an Education Research Complete, and the history databases. They're all available in the EBSCOhost interface. Most of the reference books that you would be looking at would be in Gale eBooks, and Black Studies Center and the ProQuest diversity databases you can find in ProQuest. So that's where you can go if that happens. So go, but otherwise, type in your name, make sure your email address is correct. That way, one of us can follow up on you, or the librarian who's helping at the time. If for whatever reason there's a disconnection, they can immediately try to reach you right away if that happens. And then state your question clearly and succinctly down below, and then click start. And within a minute to 2 minutes, a librarian will there to help you. More often, probably a little bit faster than what you would get for technical services help, say, for various different service websites. So that is definitely a good thing that's available to you. There are links to what we call the library app. It's more appropriately a web extension called Lead Library. Whenever you're searching on the web in general, we'll let you know if there's a library resource available, and we'll often provide you a direct link to that library resource. So I strongly recommend you include it on there. Yes, it means there's a pop-up that shows up in the top right, but that's often to your advantage. It'll let you know, ooh, instead of paying $9 for a book on Amazon, it's available in our library database. I can look at it right now. So there's definitely some big advantages to downloading the web extension titled Lead Library. There's, in addition to my picture, it also states what room number I'm in, my office number, as well as this email button that you can email me. If it's during a weekend, and obviously during spring break, it might be a day or two before I get back to you, but definitely that's the way that you can reach me in particular. There's a Google Slides presentation, which I'm going to provide to you. They granted that some pre-recorded for another class, but it's pretty much the same thing, especially for an assignment like that. You will see clearly why you should be very encouraged to go to a library database for research for your assignment versus Google at large, because, or most search engines for that matter, because they are commercial spaces. They have what are called algorithms. And when you especially want to find accurate and correct and well-researched information from an academic, you will preferably want to go to a library database. The types of sources page explains to you what are the concepts of different types of resources. This includes the information timeline, sometimes called the information cycle, which if you're looking for something that happened on a current day, you would go to internet, television, radio. By the next day or the day after, newspapers. When the upcoming week's magazines, you usually look for covers, what are called cover stories in magazines or major magazine articles. Eventually, an academic from a particular field, such as an ethnic studies professor or a historian, might write an article, and they do their research. They have their works cited list at the end, or the references list at the end. Sometimes it might even be a social scientific population study. And other academics in the same field then review the article and deem if it's ready for publication. That's why you often hear the term peer reviewed. And then finally, as more time comes by since an actual event or whatnot, there are books on the subject. For example, the whole movement right now what's happening in Florida that's trying to be very anti-African American studies as an advanced placement course. That is a fairly new story. That more likely you're going to find newspaper articles and magazine articles. We quite haven't reached the time period yet for scholarly journals, and certainly not for books. But as you can imagine, there's a whole history behind all this. There is, in terms of such movements as to what the education are, or what is called anti-racism education. That's very, very important. And so you can definitely get that background and everything on that, including, I don't know, looking at subject encyclopedia to see what, say, critical race theory is, or what woke is, in terms of there are a lot of concepts that you probably hear in the media nowadays. Down below, we have a clear distinction. What's the difference between scholarly and popular resources? In a nutshell, if the article has, say, a works cited, footnotes, other sides in the end, that's definitely scholarly. Whereas if it's written for, say, a general public and it's a magazine article with ads, it's not going to be scholarly, because in the scholarly, it's written by an academic for other academics. If it's popular, it's usually written by a journalist for a general public. And so there's a very different distinction of those type of resources. And so that's what that page is about. Search statements. The important thing to understand when it comes to going to a database that you probably never thought of using in Google, although some of this process could actually be helpful in your Google searches too, is that you want to come up with search terms such as concrete nouns or key concepts. They're usually no more than 2-word phrases. Most often your concepts and nouns and such phrases will be usually in plural form versus singular, though not always. If you have an acronym or an abbreviation, they will usually be, you will usually need to spell it out. And then when you have, you usually come up with multiple search terms. So, I mean, this example, climate change in the United States, think of it like African Americans and Civil War, for example. And the important part is you have your connector, and to basically tell the database you want both of these concepts must appear in your results. And then as you search, you may come across, because a lot of the articles and ebooks and magazine articles and various different resources will often give you are subject headings or indexing terms. And if you come across good ones, you should definitely jot those down for future searching. And then when searching, especially in a database that's in the EBSCOhost interface, you'll also want to look for limiters on the left that you all might want to narrow down your search, like click on those on the side. So just to give you an example, this one here is a federal minimum wage, a good thing for the US economy. We immediately try to recognize our concepts, and in the point of good, because that's an adjective and that's a value judgment, try to think of concepts. So for example, benefits or positive impacts. Then when you head into a database, you enter each concept and put "and" in between your search terms. In some of the databases, you'll see a number of lines, and the "ands" are already there on your left side. So enter each of your concept on each line and click search. Or if you have one line, just remember to put "and" in between each of your concepts and then click on search. And then finally, as I mentioned before, especially the EBSCOhost databases on the left, you'll have what are called limiters, where you can limit by, say, peer-reviewed, full text, a date range, but also key subject headings that are often appearing in your search results. And you can definitely go through and find and discover these. And then finally, for an individual article itself, there will usually be a listing of subject headings. So in this example, you notice after the citation of the article, which will not necessarily match how you cite by Abilene. I'll warn you that ahead of time. You will then get an abstract, a brief summary of what the article's about. And then after that, you will have a list of subject headings. This is how it typically shows in EBSCOhost. In some databases, it may appear a little different, but you definitely want to look for those subject headings. Now, I have given you some examples. Consider these like a crossword puzzle clues. And these are examples of some subject headings. For example, Blacks in the United States, the term usually used is African Americans. Yes, even if a Black person in the United States may not necessarily have definite African heritage, it's most often African Americans is the subject heading. Whereas the term Blacks is used, according to Library of Congress, if the Blacks live outside the United States. And so that's one of those interesting intricacies about subject heading indexing that I want you to especially be aware of. And then anti-slavery movements in the United States is used more often than, say, abolition movements. Unless you're looking for information on individual abolitionists, I would recommend anti-slavery movements and then add it with the United States, because there is most certainly anti-slavery movements in other parts of the world that have happened in history, including now, as well as human trafficking. If you're considering current examples of slavery where people are sold for like sexual purposes, that gosh, even happen unfortunately here in this country, in the States, definitely not legal. Down below that, Jim Crow laws is usually what's used for Jim Crow. And usually when we talk about Jim Crow laws, we're talking about sharecropping. For Civil War, because Civil Wars happen in a lot of countries and regions in the history of the world. In this case, it's actually American Civil War. By the way, most often use the term United States rather than America, but this is one of those exceptions in terms of subject headings. And then you notice if you're ever talking about constitutional amendments like the 13th Amendment, you need to point it out some here that you're talking about the United States Constitution, because amendments happen all over the place to all sorts of documents. And yes, you even have to think about that, by the way, if you're ever searching in Google, actually, even though, I mean, Google, based on its algorithms, will probably lead you to that, but it's still very good practice. And then likewise, there are various different terms for racism, and I've included, and I will, after today, for some reason, the word S is missing. I'll make sure S is there for stopping for us in terms of certain questionable police practices, as well as notice Confederate monuments, as well as the official subject heading for what's being criticized. While you'll often hear the term critical race theory, usually what's being complained and legislation's happening in states like Florida, the criticism is what is called anti-racism education, which if it was called that way, I think there would be a lot less protest, because critical race theory sounds sort of advanced and, ooh, why are people in grade school learning such a sophisticated concept? Well, they aren't. The term critical race theory is a higher education concept, usually used in actually law school. So the important thing here is what are the general concepts that go beyond what's typical media. Just to give you an example of other times, a concept you hear in media is not actually a subject heading. Death penalty, the usual subject heading, for example, is capital punishment. So there are all sorts of examples like that out there that you might come across. And so it's important to be aware of if the subject heading seems to be more neutral and less emotional, it's more likely the one, in other words, that I'm recommending. Okay, the databases page, which I'm especially going to be focusing on in another log segment, I'm going to be discussing how to choose databases, how to combine databases in your research, and also the process of finding articles, a little bit of recognizing citations, what I recognize when you find a promising article, what you should do with it, i.e. almost always email the article, because even if you're thinking, well, I'll just put it on my cloud, I can get it anywhere. Usually, if it's in your email, it's a reliable place that you can always go back to, and it's a feature that's available from a lot of databases directly that you should rely upon. Reference, which is basically your subject encyclopedias. What was this concept exactly about? And wouldn't it be nice if these concepts were written by, say, the same type of experts that write scholarly articles? Well, those exist. That's what subject encyclopedias are. And they're written for someone who's just learning it for the first time, unlike a journal article where someone would already know what, say, Jim Crow like it's the back of their hand, what the whole history was and the Jim Crow laws and everything, and they know every single one. If you don't know that, that's where you want to go, subject encyclopedia. And there are definitely some good examples. Definitely go to Gale eBooks of African Americans to cross-search a whole bunch. And actually, I don't want to log in yet because I want to show that to you later, and I don't want to constantly reset this. But you would click on that, and then there would be a search box on top that will only search the Gale ebooks that are in the African Americans category. So definitely a good place to go. And then there are some definitely different concepts such as slavery at large, including modern world and modern slavery, which will definitely include human trafficking, African American history, such as the Civil War, Jim Crow, and the Civil Rights Movement when it was new, civil rights and Black Power movements in general, and the criminal justice system and mass incarceration. And you may be searching for an area that's totally beyond that, and if that's the case, definitely at least searching Gale eBooks at large or Gale eBooks limited African Americans, and you should be quite fruitful. If you are looking for statistics, first of all, a lot of journal articles and the pro-con resources and databases usually will provide you with a lot of statistics. Let me just go back to this right now. So these will definitely include statistics. But if you're wanting to find any in general, and a lot of them are available from nonprofit organization websites and government websites, start with statistics sources. And then when you come across something that looks promising, go to where it's listed, the name of the source, grab that copy and then paste it into Google. And usually that will lead you directly to the table itself. For some reason that doesn't work. There's another field that talks about, gives you the web address for the nonprofit or government website at large, copy and paste that. And then once you're in the government or nonprofit website, then copy and paste the name of the source, and usually you will be led to the table. Library catalog is where to go to find our physical collection, although it also finds ebooks and a certain range of articles. If you're especially interested in looking for books, this is where to go. So let's say that African Americans and Jim Crow, which is probably redundant. I probably could just get by with Jim Crow because it's almost always about African Americans and the laws that were available. And let's say Shame and the Ex-Convict and New Jim Crow. This is actually talking about probably what some of the rest of you might be looking for, but let's say race, crime, and police in the Jim Crow South. In this case, it's available as an ebook. And so when that happens, you click available online and then click on EBSCOhost ebooks, and that you will usually take you directly to the ebook itself. Sometimes you might be in a database and then you need to reproduce the search. On the first page, I'm getting nothing but ebooks. So I'm going to click on the left held by library to limit it what's in the physical library. And I'm just going to show you when it's in the physical library, instead of leading you to a link, it lets you know if it's available at, and then it tells you a location. Stacks are the tall shelves located in the back of the room. You write down the call number, and then when you're in the library, you go to those shelves and you go alphanumerically until you get to E185.61.R46 2008, and lo and behold, there will be that book. And then, by the way, your student ID card functions as your library card, and most books are available for 2 weeks checkout. If you do not have a student ID card, you should definitely get one. Building 700, when you're entering from the street side, go to your immediately right where you see this General Computer Center, and people there will be more than happy to get you your card within minutes. You'll definitely need to make sure you have your ID, such as a driver's license. It usually will be helpful if you have a list of your registered classes, although I can definitely look that up for you. And as I said, you can definitely get that in minutes. So that's definitely where you want to go. So I'm going to go back to this guide. Works cited and Noodle tools. I'm assuming in this class you're using MLA. The library does have a handout of the most common use. We still, at this moment, have the 8th edition. We're currently working on our 9th edition, which we hope will be out by this fall. But right now, the differences between the MLA 8 and the 9 for Works Cited is very minimal, so it should work. And we also have a citation generator officially through the college, an official subscription called Noodle Tools. And in this case, what happens is you log into Noodle Tools 2 times. First through your WID number and your 6-digit class web PIN if you're off campus. And then you create your own account. And then after you create your account, I would strongly encourage you to do a new project. Make sure it's advanced and MLA 9. They don't have MLA 8 there, it's MLA 9. And then create a new project, give it a name, and have it open and active while you're doing database searching. Why? Because you'll be able to quickly export your findings of promising articles. The only warning I will give you if you do that is you need to double check your work, because computers can only do so much. If you enter everything in Noodle Tools field by field based on the citation you're looking at, you will be accurate. But once machines go talking to another machine, and some things are a little bit off. So make sure you double check that work. And finally, yes, the World Wide Web. And probably the most important thing, and it's talked about in the Google versus library databases presentation. But if you allow yourself 12 minutes to see this very important video from Dr. Sophia Noble at UCLA that talks about what happens when you're searching in commercial spaces like Google, I'm hoping that you understand, especially for an assignment like this, you might want to sway away. It's like getting institutional racism reaffirmed. And that's because, unfortunately, commercial-driven algorithms not only drive this, but the manipulation of those commercial algorithms for bots especially reinforce this, because not only do a lot of business companies use these notorious bots to hack into search engine to get their results towards the top, but a lot of dubious organizations, including unfortunately racist and white supremacist organizations, also take advantage of that. So this in general is an introduction to the guide itself. I will in another recording give you instructions on how to use our databases. So in the meantime, I wish you best fortunes in your research, and I'm hoping this will be a good and productive experience for you. And if there are challenges, remember you can chat with us through our online chat. You can see any of us at the reference desk Monday through Thursday, with the exception of spring break, of course. We're open 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Fridays 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And Chabot librarians are also available remotely 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on Saturdays. Again, spring break would be the big exception to that. But otherwise, a guest librarian can help you at all other times, even at 2 a.m. at night. And remember that you can definitely email me, but like I said, there might be times where it might be a day or two, and especially if it's during spring break, maybe even a little bit longer before I get back to you, but I will definitely do. If you send me an email, please let me know in the heading that you're a student from Instructor Treadwell's class, so I can move you towards the top if I have a whole slew of emails, because that's what us librarians are for. We may seem very busy, but we are there to help you. And that includes if we're at the reference desk and we look like we're busy. You have no idea how often I hear, "I'm sorry to trouble you," of which my answer will be, "Go ahead, trouble me. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for you." So please remember that. And so anyway, I will conclude this portion, and definitely, please definitely look at least the presentation on how to use databases. And again, best fortunes on your research.